Okay, I don't know if I can pull this off. Let's try it. This is a 1/4-inch cable. We're stretching these about 150 feet for a netting fence net job that we're doing. You can buy, we have to take this cable, wrap it around a pole, put these clamps on, get it good and secure. We go to the other end of the cable and stretch it, and then do the same. Wrap it around the pole and clamp it down, and then hang netting from it. Clamping it down to a pole is no big deal, but getting to the other end and pulling it, that gets tricky. Now, you could take this, fold it back, put one of these on it, and that's 50-50. You end up using, to me, it just doesn't work as well. Because I pulled enough of these apart when I had this little setup here. So what I got to do is I had to figure out a way to pull this. I bought the commercial stuff, had no success with it, because they just wouldn't grip like they're supposed to. As you pull it, this skin grips tighter as you pull it, and then it pulls the cable. It looks great on paper, but in reality, it didn't work too well. I made several other things that didn't quite work, and I finally got one that does. Now, this is an 8-inch, hang on here, do this one-handed. This is an 8-inch eye bolt. You can get this at any hardware store. They're probably about, I don't know, it might be 10 or 12 bucks. I just bought a bunch of these on sale this winter. So this is the little bolt that comes with it. This is a large net that's floating here. You'll see why. We need to attach this to this in order to pull this cable. Okay. Now right now we're at the end of this. We're at the end of this cable. That's pretty easy. That's not too tough. This is a 5/8. Yeah. 5/8. I'm going to call this a clamp. I don't know what they call these. It's a wire clamp or something like that. Once again, you get these at the hardware store. But we're dealing with 1/4-inch, 1/4-inch or 1/2-inch cable, whatever it is. So I'm using bigger stuff. You could probably use something smaller, if you're dealing with some other smaller type of wire. Anyhow, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this thing here. I've been doing this for a week. Actually, I've been doing this all winter. And finally figured out a way where, hey, I think I got this figured out. There's so much of this stuff 3 and 4 times. Okay, eye bolt. Stuff here on the end. I'm doing this one-handed. I'm going to put that eye bolt and everything inside of this clamp. There you go. Okay, see that? Pretty simple, no big deal. A couple things are going to happen here. Now, I would not call this a cable vise or a cable grip, but it does have that effect. You could call it a cable puller. Hand tighten this. Sit down here. I don't mean to make you dizzy, but it's hard to do one-handed. Okay. Now, I prefer to have the eye bolt. I'm going to call this the frame. I prefer to have the eye bolt going through this frame and the cable down here on this part. Okay. Now, by having this floating bolt here, nut, it's going to give me a little bit of an angle. Through here. Okay, that's important. If it went straight out, I don't like this much. The something I made before worked out really well, and it had this concept. If I move this closer, let's see if I move this closer to the clamp, it increases. Oh, hang on. There we go. If I move that net closer to the clamp, it increases this angle. This is important. Okay? Now what I can do to make sure I maintain that angle. I'll move this thing up here. You should be able to do this for less than 20 bucks, by the way. Now, I'll take a wrench or socket and I'll crank this thing down. And this will actually pinch it, okay? And I'll crank it down pretty good. Nothing. I'm not going to distort the cable or anything, but I'll crank this down. I've got my angle. And I said, I've been doing this all winter incorrectly. Finally, I put this setup together. I'm going to hook into the eye bolt here, okay, and stretch my cable. I'm going to be attached at the other end. We go through telephone poles with eye bolts on them. We're going to stretch it all the way through there, and then I attach myself at the other end. That's a different video. But anyhow, this little thing here works. You can pull cable all day. I did 5 of them today with this little setup right here. You can use, if you have smaller cable, you can use smaller parts, smaller eye bolt, smaller clamp, and all this stuff. But this works. I've bought this stuff from the online, and most of it just it doesn't clamp, it doesn't grip like it's supposed to. You'd be sliding around, wasting your time. Like I said, I tighten this thing up, just and get it good and snug. I maintain this angle, very important, and I'm pulling away. Now we're at the end of the line here. We're at the end of this cable, so this is real easy to slide onto. But let me show you a big advantage this thing has. Let me slide this thing out here. Okay, boom. I'm now off of this thing. I was able to go here and slide on. I can take the same thing, and if I don't have the end available, let's say we're attached to a pole here, and I go 30, 40 feet here, and it's attached to another pole. How am I going to pull this thing? I don't want to have to take it apart or cut it. Well, because this thing here is a 3-piece little program, 4 pieces. Doing this through the screen here. Okay, I take it apart. 2 nuts. I come to where I am at the line and bring this in. Bring in my eye bolt. Try not to drop this thing. And so it allows me not to have to take apart the cable or cut into it or whatever. I can pull. That's not on there right, but you get the idea. I can break into the middle without cutting the cable or taking it down or disconnecting it or any of that. Okay, I'll clamp all that down, same thing, and I can pull this thing. Big time saver. Now I said they sell stuff like this that works on it's a vise, it's a grip. I've used 2 of them, they suck. Luckily, the bigger one I didn't have to pay for it. Someone else's, they paid 150 bucks for it. This thing, I've been using this, I figured this out 3-4 days ago, and I've used it 10 or 15 times. I used it 5-6 times today because we're stretching this cable. And this was effective. You could buy this, like I said, this whole thing might be 20 bucks at your hardware store. This is a big one. You could probably go bigger if you had to, but this is big because it's big cable. This is an 8-inch eye bolt. You could get one smaller and pull barbed wire or some simple, whatever you're pulling. This works. Hopefully hopefully you can see what I was doing here. If I can figure this out, anybody can. It just took me all winter. But yeah, it works. Cable puller, about 20 bucks. Love you, God bless.